If you are buying stuff that you don't really need, it can be really frustrating. You know you should stop because you can't afford it and you're spending beyond your means, but for some reason you just can't. New clothes, new tech, makeup, beauty products, gadgets for the kitchen, subscriptions, home decor. Maybe you spend on some or all of these, or maybe it's something else. The trouble with buying endless amounts of stuff is that even if we can technically on paper afford it, we're still just cluttering up our homes with endless amounts of stuff that we don't actually need and that isn't going to enrich our lives. And that can prevent you from affording stuff that you do actually need or meeting long-term savings goals that can make a real fundamental difference to your life. I loved the movie Confessions of a Shopaholic, but unless Hugh Dancy comes in and sweeps you off your feet, the reality of that impulse spending loop is going to be way less cute than it was for Isla Fisher's character in that movie. Look, cutting back on spending on non-essential stuff is really, really hard. Everything in society is built up to tell you that spending is fun, you deserve it, it's a treat, it's what everybody does. I still have struggles and moments of weakness myself, but I'm going to share with you some tips that have really helped me to curb my non-essential spending. First of all, you need to ask yourself, why do you buy all this stuff, whatever it is that you are buying compulsively? A huge part of shopping is the feeling that you get out of the process. It's not just about the stuff that you actually have at the end, it's the journey towards getting the stuff. There's a rush from sort of the research phase where you're looking at things, and then where you're actually picking it out, and then when you actually go to check out and you're handing over your card or you're putting in your card details and then your order is confirmed. That whole process kind of is a dopamine hit for the brain. So the whole process feels great, and when you initially have the new thing in your hands, that's brilliant. But then once the shine goes off, the shiny brand new thing, you're chasing the high again. Often we shop for retail therapy, so we shop for the rush that we might feel in the moment. Trigger could be boredom or loneliness. We deserve a treat after a hard week. And it's totally understandable that we do that because society pushes on us that shopping is something that we deserve. You deserve a treat, you've had a hard week, you've had a tough day. We're told that shopping is beneficial to give yourself a boost. Or your trigger for buying stuff that you don't really need could be that feeling of needing to keep up with the Joneses and that pressure on social media to buy the latest thing. And social media honestly has made it harder than ever to resist the pull of hyper-consumerism. There's always a new version of the thing that you just bought, and it's the best ever, and it's the thing that's totally going to change your life. So it's the new iPhone, the latest pair of trainers, the new on-trend coat, the new on-trend hat, whatever it is. The new style that everyone has converted to, the latest cooking fad gadget. And as part of these things, you may be justifying your spend by convincing yourself that it is a need, not a want, that this is the best thing ever and it's going to make a fundamental difference to your life. You convince yourself, justify the purchase in your head. Like the jeans are essential because even though you have 3 other pairs, you don't have any in this particular shade. The latest moisturizer is essential because it's the one thing that's going to deal with your skin issues and make it all glowy and beautiful. Or it's in the sale, which means that if you don't buy it now, then you miss out on the good price, and basically that's just like throwing money away. Look, there's a reason why outlets hold sales like constantly all way round. It's because it's a good psychological trick to make you part with your money. And look, this is most definitely me, the justification thing. I've bought so many things over the years because I've convinced myself I need it. I need it for that night out. I need it for that event. This is going to make such a huge difference in the household. This bit of decor is going to really pull everything together and make the house look great. You justify your spending, you convince yourself that it is a need rather than just something that you want. So what are the steps that you can take to actually do something about it? Once you've identified the reasons why behind your non-essential spending habit, then it becomes much easier to formulate a plan to change that habit, to break it. Going cold turkey is not necessarily the answer here. I think that crash budgeting, just like crash dieting, it doesn't really work. Just like a no spend month isn't going to change a long-term habit of overspending. Like you'll have had one good month, but that's not going to make a fundamental difference to your wealth, to your savings goals, if over the long run your habits of overspending on non-essentials continues. So what I did was actually really look at my budget and analyze what room I have for fun spending. And I think it really helps to analyze exactly how much you are spending on non-essentials so that you can face the reality of that and take a big step back and look at the bigger picture. Like even £20 a day on needless stuff really adds up. Let's say you're spending £200 every single month on clothes. That's going to be 12 grand over the course of 5 years. What can you do with 12 grand? Probably a fair amount. That's a fairly decent chunk of change. And then you have to consider, what items did I buy with that money? And am I still even wearing those things after 5 years? Am I still even wearing them after 1? How many times have I worn them? Did I actually get a decent sort of cost per use out of them? I knew that I had a problem when I did a little stock check in my wardrobe and realized that there were things in there that I'd only worn once. That's just not an effective way of spending my money. So as part of this first step, it's a really good idea, once you have figured out how much you're spending and how much you should be spending, to then set an actual budget. So how you actually set your budget is kind of up to you. It can be useful to have a budgeting rule, such as the 50-30-20 rule. And this is where 50% of your income after tax goes on your needs, so sort of rent, mortgage, food, bills, that kind of important stuff. 30% goes on your wants, so the stuff that you enjoy, the fun stuff, and then 20% goes into savings. Now, this distribution isn't set in stone. You don't have to divide it up in the 50-30-20. Say that you need to put 60% into your actual needs, your essential spending, then you just adjust the other budget, the rest of the budget accordingly. So say you put 25% on wants and 15% into savings. And if you have a really ambitious savings goal, then again, adjust that and cut back on your fun budget and put more into your savings. But this bit where you're making that plan, it's about being realistic. What money do I have? What can I afford? And what am I realistically going to be able to stick with? And part of this comes down to being realistic, but also disciplined and accepting that if you have been overspending, it can't carry on. And this can be really hard to accept. I totally get that, particularly in a world where we have a kind of perception that everyone else has everything and everyone else has all the holidays and all the great stuff and all the fun stuff. But the thing is, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't know what kind of debt people might be accruing. So don't spend based on the great life you think other people are having. Make a spending plan based on what you specifically can afford. And incentivize your savings by being crystal clear by what it is that you're trying to achieve. So is it that you want to move to a bigger, better house in a nicer area? Are you trying to build on your pension pot, or are you trying to grow your kids' savings pot? So instead of a rush from buying stuff, look for a rush from savings. Honestly, once the snowball effect kicks in and your saving pot starts to build, that is a rush in itself. No new stuff rush feels as good or lasts as long as the rush you can get from having the money you need to cover your long-term needs. Next up, it's important, whatever you're buying, that you consider what it is going to do for you. What problem is this thing actually solving for you? Because another handbag, when you already have 20 handbags, isn't really going to be solving the problem of you need a bag. And introduce a waiting period to any purchase that you make so that you give yourself real time to consider these questions, so that you're not going to impulse spend, so that you're not going to justify it in a split second and just purchase the thing before you fully thought it out. I like to give myself a 14-day cooling off period before I spend on anything that I don't really need, that I know is a non-essential. And this really helped to prevent those late night purchases that would often happen when I was breastfeeding and feeling a bit bored and a bit fed up, and I was seeking out that rush from knowing that there would be something coming in the post later that week. Create friction to stop impulse purchases. Now, there are some very practical things you can do to stop yourself from spending in a split second. Delete your card details from all of your devices so that your payment details don't auto-complete when your trigger finger is just about to tap on buy it now. Unsubscribe and unfollow the brands that really tempt you. And on Facebook, if a lot of your shopping is done via Facebook ads, you can actually go into your Facebook settings, head to ad preferences, and you can tell it what brands you no longer want to hear from, so that that temptation isn't in your face every time you log on. Shop your existing stuff first. When we've got used to that rush of having a brand new thing, we stop appreciating the things that we already have. So if you have a night out coming up or a work event, then go into your wardrobe and take everything out and really take some time to consider the pieces that you have. I bet you that there is something in there that is completely appropriate for whatever it is that you have got planned. And this is also a really good chance to declutter and like have a bit of a reality check. This really helped me when I went through all of my clothes, a reality check of all the stuff that I'd bought and not worn. It can be kind of sobering, but it's also a really useful exercise. I often think about how much the media bangs on about it when the Princess of Wales wears an outfit for the second time. Like, ooh, Kate recycled this £5,000 coat. As if it's like a miracle to wear a coat for a second time, or God forbid even a third time. Now look, I know she's royalty, guys, but I feel like this attitude kind of is embedded in our society for everyone, that once you've worn something once, it's time to get something brand new. When there's a big event coming up, you must get something brand new. I think it's just time to totally reject that sentiment. Look, this video is not about removing all fun spending. It is so important, I think, to leave room in your budget for fun spending in order to make it realistic over the long run. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more from me.